Lucy tried to take my soul, but I'm still G. I can't take it now. You've gone far too long. Off with this head on. Off with this head.
So this Future series has been, for me at least, one of a kind. The things that God's been honestly speaking in it, I just think they're fresh and they're profound, and I think they're for right now. I think we need it. And I think we go through seasons where we can just tell that God is speaking something to us, and there's seasons where we just know we preach the Word of God. We always preach the Word of God, but I think there's moments and seasons like this where we can just tell God's really trying to get our attention and speak to us. And maybe this has just been for me. I know that's not the case because I've seen people hit up the We're One hotline, reaching out. I've had a lot of people talk to me, but if this was just for me, I'm telling you, I needed it because God's done something so fresh in our team through this series. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to the future, guys. To 2019, 2020, the plans that God has taken us, like the journey He's taken us on, we're just seeing God in it. So it's just super exciting. And so I thought tonight, since this series was only supposed to be 3 weeks and kind of like 1, 2, 3 done. It's supposed to go Pastor Pastor Stephen, me. And then I ruined it and I just kept going and I didn't stop talking and I just couldn't help it. God just kept speaking. And y'all like the bumper, right? You like that video. Hey, can you hit just part of that video for a sec? Just hit that video. Go halfway through. Can you bring it up? Everybody get up. Everybody get up. You can bring it up. We're just going to loosen up a little bit. Come on, come on. Come on, somebody give Jesus some praise. I don't know why we just did that. We just did because we could. But I thought we would end this series. So many great messages have gone forth, but I think sometimes they kind of hit and then we quickly forget about them. I know even we do because we were this afternoon preparing for this, and Pastor Steve was like, dude, I can't even remember what I preached the second week of this series, much less what you preached even last week. You know what I mean? And so I thought what we could do is kind of go back from the beginning and just kind of retake in what God spoke and just on a practical level kind of talk about it. And I know last week, if you were here, the message was called The Kingdom Mind. And really what it's about is looking at kingdom work, meaning the work that God has for us, the ways that God has it for us, and allowing that to really penetrate our mind. And if you remember, I made a statement that's just kind of stuck with me personally, is that dull-minded people become easy targets for the enemy, but kingdom-minded people become weapons against the enemy. So it's the difference between you just constantly taking shots to yourself and you taking shots against the devil. And that whole concept came to me. It was a part 2, if you remember, the week before. The message was called The Risk of Rejection. And I know we've even had some opportunities since then to tell people about Jesus. And every time you do, there is the risk of rejection when you do it. Because you know that God has called you to do it. If you are a follower of Jesus Christ, then He's called us to go tell people about who He is, advance the gospel. If you're not a follower of Jesus Christ, then you're one of the people that He's telling us to advance the gospel and share Jesus with. So either way, the kingdom mind, the risk of rejection, advancing the gospel, future of God, everybody's included in it. One way or another, either you're going to be told about it or you know you're supposed to tell somebody about it. But this whole thing started really with this concept of understanding that fear and anxiety and worry and doubt and these things, they a lot of times keep us from our future.
We started this whole thing from looking at the inward, and then as Pastor Dave was saying, we ended with the external. What do we do on the outside? But we had to start by looking on the inside, and we started looking in Matthew 6:34. It says, "Don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to worry about itself." And I talked about the idea of this inflation of how scary tomorrow can be, and how we get so scared of of a shadow we might see in our room, and we forget to turn the lights on, and we see that it's in the end, tomorrow is going to be okay because God has me, and I don't have to worry about tomorrow. And when you take that to the next level throughout the series, and we keep going throughout the series, you can see that it starts with that inward desire to want to look to the future, and that inward desire to want to look to the future and be afraid of it, because it can be legitimately scary. It can be super scary sometimes, but a lot of times we inflate how scary it really is, when in the end we just got to flick the lights on, and it's not that scary. And we got today to worry about, and tomorrow's going to worry about itself.
Yeah, and I think at the same time, as much as the future can be scary, that's a part of it that you touched on. And then what I sort of took it from was how the future can just be frustrating. Like, because we want to have control of our lives, and we want to be able to, like, force what we want our future to look like. I think the quote from A.W. Tozer that sums up my message the best, he said, "Most Christians don't hear God's voice because we've already decided we aren't going to do what he says." And we talked a lot about how the Urim, say the Urim and the Thummim, the Urim and the Thummim.
What's that?
You weren't here, bro. You don't know. It's an inside joke from the Old Testament. There's these two rocks in essentially the ephod, like the apron. We use the apron. Who did I pulled somebody up on, your buddy, Nick.
Yeah.
Pulled him up on stage, and there's these two rocks that the priest would pull out, and that's how they would discern the will of God. And God actually, it says in the Old Testament that God spoke through the Urim and the Thummim. That actually, it's just two rocks in the physical, but it was the will of God, and God was dictating those things.
I thought that was two people's names.
The Urim and the Thummim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never remember their names.
Urim
and the Thummim.
Isn't there an actor called like Irma Thurman or something like that?
No, it's Urim Thummim. She's in Kill Bill. Urim
Oh,
Thummim.
yeah, that actor.
It's Uma Thurman.
Yeah,
That
Uma
was a
Thurman,
joke.
that's what it is.
Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
Urim Thummim. Urim Thummim. Just sounds like you have a
Thermometer.
lisp. Urim Thummim. But we talked about how, like, when the Holy Spirit came at Pentecost and we walked into this new journey that of what Jesus accomplished for us on the cross, how that old way of doing things faded away, and we actually have the privilege, the ability to be able to constantly, consistently discern the will of God in our lives as we earnestly seek him and as we lay aside kind of what we want and desire what he wants for us.
Yeah, it's been kind of cool how this, like Pastor Tyler was saying, how this series has developed. Because we sort of like prepared the series with our Creative 7 team and everything, but we didn't each sit down and be like, okay, you're going to talk about this, and you're like, it kind of just like organically developed. And so like, it started with this whole like inward worry, sort of not about tomorrow, and then it was like, oh, I'm looking too far about the plans, I got to trust God. And then it kind of like, it started here with fear, and then Pastor Steve was stretching out to plans, and then I kind of yanked it back to that third week that the future is now. That everything that God is wanting to do in your life for later actually starts right now. And then it developed in the risk of rejection and everything, and now we're sitting here tonight, and we're going to close this whole thing off. But what we thought we'd do is kind of practically talk about all of these messages in a way that maybe some of you have had these questions or you've wondered these things before. And I think for a lot of us, we're stuck between the fear of not stepping out and the worry of stepping into the wrong thing. And so God has these plans for us, and he wants us to step into them, but we're like fearful, I hope I don't step into the wrong thing. Like, I hope I hear God correctly. Like, I hope I can understand God's will and do what he wants from me. I remember when I was 16, and, like I'm full on interested in girls, and I'm like driving, I'm driving at this point, and I can get a girlfriend, and what?
It was just a weird way to phrase it. I'm full on.
Well, I mean, like, I
interested in
kissed my
girls.
first girl in kindergarten, but at 16, it was like, I was like really like,
I remember your first 16-year-old
Where the 16-year-old dudes at in the room? Anybody 16 in the room? Oh, one 16-year-old guy.
One 16-year-old
That's one
bro.
lonely. That's one lonely brother right there. Okay, so. But I remember at that age, I started really thinking, like, I was like thinking about getting married, and I was thinking about like, what would I name my kids in the future? I just like, I'm a planner. I think ahead. I was thinking about, where am I going to go to school? What's my job going to be? Like, you're planning so far ahead, and here's the issue, is that we're stuck between like, I don't want to do the wrong thing, and then some people rush so quickly into the future that they do the wrong thing. And so I guess the question, let's talk about this for a second. How do we decipher what is God's voice and what's not? Like, what are God's plans and what's like this plan in our mind that we're just wanting? We're like, I think God is telling me that. And I've had those people before that they're like, God told me before, and like God didn't say it at all. Like literally they came back and they go, yep, I was wrong. So how do you decipher, like, what
Like
are God's...
those guys in Christian colleges who go up to girls and just sort of shotgun down the line and tell them all that the Lord told them they were going to get married.
Yeah.
If you end up at a Christian college, Sid's shaking her head. Where's Janelle at? She'll
Straight
shake her
up.
head. This is a very common thing. It's a little freaky. You should run. Run away.
No, like, no joke. I legitimately, when I got on staff, though, 4 or 5 different girls literally felt that God had told them they were going to marry me. Literally all
They
of them
would
are...
all just 5 of them just line up outside of his office every day, and he'd come out of the office. And
No,
all
it
5 of
wasn't
them
like
were standing
that.
there.
But I found out, I didn't know it at the time, but I found out later, all these girls legitimately thought that God told them they were going to marry me. And obviously they were wrong because I didn't marry any of them. I married Sid. And did God tell you you were going to marry me? No? No? So the one person that God didn't say it to, I ended up getting married to, right? So how do we decipher this? How do we figure this out? God's plans, our plan, like what's like, you know.
I wrote down like 5 different ways, if you're a note taker, that we can sort of discern God's will, God's plan for our life. What I thought was funny is when we were talking about this, every time Pastor Dave would say God's plan, he would try to sing the Drake song God's Plan, but
I've
he's
never
never
heard
heard
it.
the song.
I've never
so
heard
he
it.
would
He'd
just
be
like make it up.
God's plan. God's plan.
God's plan.
God's
That's
plan.
all I say.
But he was like,
God's plan. That's all
but
I
he's-
say. I
but
think he
he's-
does something
He'd
like
be like,
that.
you know that song, God's plan.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Here's
but
the
he's
thing.
never heard it,
I've
as
never
you
heard it.
shouldn't hear it.
But here's the thing. Drake's trying to zone in on God's plan, numero uno, 1, like it starts and it ends. God has plans. What you talking about, Drake? God's plan?
Yeah.
Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the plans. Drake, you got it wrong, brother. Single, take it back. Take it back to hell where it belongs.
Wow, this just got really like
I'm just
deep
saying.
really fast.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so if you're a note taker, I wrote down like 5 different separate ways that we sort of distinguish and discern the will of God in our lives. I think the first thing you have to figure out is most of this is going to start with a desire, right? So if I have something that I want to do, what do I want to do? Okay, nothing in and of itself is wrong. There's a whole lot of deep theology behind that, but it's not the things that God is obsessed with. God is really, really focused on the intention behind the doing of the things, right? There are many things that you are incapable of doing without poor intentions. That's just what those things stand for. You have to have poor intentions to do them. But it's not the thing that frustrates him because he's ultimately always after our heart. So really what it always comes back to, when I'm trying to discern the will of God in my life, the ultimate question that I have to ask is, why do I want to do this? What are my motives? What ultimately is my desire in this? What's my skin in the game? If you look in Proverbs 21, chapter 21, verse 2, it says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts. Meaning, everybody's intentions on the surface, you always think that your intentions are pure, right? But you're the only person that can actually judge your intentions. If Pastor Tyler does something, I can't judge his intentions. I can only judge his actions. He's the only one that knows his intentions. I have to judge by the external. He's the one, him and God are the only 2 beings in the universe that know the internal of what really is the reason behind what he's doing. And we have to really focus on, when we're discerning the will of God, why am I doing what I'm doing? The second one, what's the benefit? What is ultimately the benefit to me spiritually, emotionally, physically, and socially? And I think that's a great order. I think the first way that we should look at it is kingdom mind. We should look at what is the benefit of me in me spiritually. Will this benefit me spiritually? It can sound selfish, but we got to take care of us first. Will this benefit me spiritually? Will this benefit me emotionally? Will this benefit me physically? There's many things that don't benefit us physically. And finally, will this benefit us socially? What we tend to do is we tend to decide whether or not something benefits us socially, and that actually becomes the forerunner, the precursor of what becomes most important. And that's actually probably the least important thing. Jesus said you're going to be hated by men if you follow me, which means that socially you're going to kind of get raked over the coals if you do what God ultimately wants for you spiritually. Third one, who gets the glory? 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. If you do this thing, who gets the glory for it? Do you get the glory for it? Does God get the glory for it? Does the world ultimately, meaning Satan, get the glory for it? We have to ask ourselves when we're stepping into something, who, based on my intentions again, who is going to get the glory for this thing? And if it's ultimately not for the purpose of giving God glory, really it's not something that should be a part of our life. If we really claim to be people that are sold out, passionate, in love with Jesus. And the final one is, who could it hurt? Jesus talks a lot, the Bible just in general talks a lot about being very intentional about not being someone or doing things that could cause someone else to stumble. I think this is a huge, huge thing that so many Christians overlook. And notice I didn't say, who will it hurt? I said, who could it hurt? Because we have to actually err on the side of caution in the way that we live, because you don't know always the impact that the things you'll do, say, act, respond, you don't ultimately know the impact that those things will have. We don't know the impact that those things will have in other people's lives. So the question is not, what do I know for sure? Will this for sure make someone stumble? No, the question is, could it make someone stumble? Because that actually is a really telling point of your intentions. If ultimately you get to that last question and it goes, well, could it make someone stumble? And the answer to that is yes. And you're like, well, oh well. That shows clearly your intentions. That shows clearly the heart behind what you're doing. And God has weighed that, and that's what he's most concerned with, is the intentions behind why we're doing things.
I think if you were to take the kind of, was it 4 things?
Yeah, it was 4.
4 things that Pastor Steve just threw out. I look at how that applied. I remember, I was probably 22 years old. I had just got on staff here at the church, and I was the outreach pastor at the time. And God was just giving me all these cool opportunities. Like all these doors were opening at the high schools and different things. And I could like see God in it. Yet I also knew I was in Emily City, Michigan. Now I have to explain that by letting you understand that around the same time God was opening all these doors, I got a phone call from one of my mentors from college in Minneapolis, where he called me up and he goes, hey, how's everything going there at Gateway and Emily City? I'm like, dude, God is so awesome. Like, man, he's just like breaking doors down for me. He's not even opening them. Like, he's just like, it's amazing all this stuff that's going on. He's like, cool. So yeah, I'm calling to offer you a position at a church. And I'm just like, dude, were you not just listening to everything I just said? And he goes, I'm calling to offer you a position at a church here in the cities to do worship. I was a part of, this guy knew that I was a part of the music scene. He knew that we had traveled the Midwest. He known what we were capable of and what I was capable of. And so he called me saying, this is, this church, this is like roughly the amount of money. And it was like literally over double what I was making currently. And it was thousands of people. The church was bigger than Emily City. And I'm like, is he not listening? I just told him how good everything is going. But see, immediately, you're at this crossroad now. My plans, God's plans. What sounds really sexy and what God's actually called me to. And you're right there and you're trying to decipher, where's God in this? Because this was somebody I respected. This was one of my mentors that had raised me up, somebody that like I to this day think well of. And so you're at that crossroad when you take those 4 things and you begin lining them up. Okay, could it hurt somebody? Is it good for me or not? You begin to line them up. And when you're looking at decisions, guys, sometimes for your future, it really is simple. Don't smoke weed. It's bad for you, right? Don't drink. Like certain things for your future, they are very simple. The Bible speaks into them, but you're like, the Bible doesn't talk about weed. Well, the Bible does talk about what we put in our body. Okay, so it might not say exactly marijuana or, the golden roach, or I just made that one up. I don't know if that's an actual term. It could be a drug term out there. That's a good one, golden roach. You can clearly tell I've never done drugs before. I don't know terminology. But sometimes it's very simple. It is. And other times it's like, okay, God's doing really great things where I'm at, but God could do really great things if I go here too. So what's the decision? And when you're making the decisions for your future, a couple of just practical things, even outside of what Pastor Steve said, that we're going to get talking to a little bit more of how you can practically do it. But one, you just got to pray about it. You truly got to talk to God about it. 2, you got to talk to people that truly know you. There are people that have been around you long enough that truly know you. For instance, there was some things I can look back in Pastor Tyler's life. There's things that Pastor Steve, throughout the years, he can look at in my life where, like, I saw him making decisions. He saw me making decisions, whatever. And I was like, no, dude, I know you. That's not best. No, Pastor Dave, I know you. Like, we're brothers, literally. And so we grew up watching each other make dumb decisions. Mainly me, I was making them. He watched me, let's be honest. Yeah. But my mentor at the time, although he knew me, he didn't know me like Pastor knew me, a.k.a. who was also my dad. He didn't know me like Pastor Paul knows me, who I grew up under his youth ministry. And so sometimes when you don't know exactly what to do, you bring it in prayer before God, and then you ask people that you know, they really know you. They've been with you for years. They've been with you like from the very beginning, and you also step into that too.
I think something to that. I think I don't know, was it Jeff Grinnell who said this, but he said, have someone in your life that spiritually scares you, that you're afraid to go to them to a certain extent. Obviously not so afraid that you'll never go to them, but you know that like fear you get when you did something wrong and your parents are gonna find out and you have to approach them? That's a healthy thing. And to have people in your life, maybe it might not be your parents, maybe it might be them, but someone spiritually who you go, oh no, when they find out, it's gonna be awful. The reason why that is a healthy thing, okay? Too much of that, unhealthy, but a little bit of that is very healthy because why? What does it do? It keeps you accountable and it makes you go, oh, okay, so I not only am I supposed to listen to them, but sometimes it's a little scary. And that fear is a little bit of a good fear. You know, when the word says that you're supposed to have a fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, fear is not always a bad thing when it's fear to drive me away from the things that I'm always desiring, all this sin. And what we do is sometimes even there's a fear of what our sin is, and there's a fear of what our future is to the point where I've asked God, what do I do in this situation? God, what do I do in this situation? And I legitimately hear him go this. I'm like, yeah, but God, what do I do in this situation? Because I don't like his answer. And I'm not afraid of his answer. That's the problem. Because he's going, you should do this, otherwise it's going to turn bad. And I should have a little bit of healthy fear for that answer to go, okay, God, you told me to do this. If I don't do it, something's going to turn out wrong. Something's going to go really bad if I don't listen.
I think too, guys, you got to understand that there are things that look good. And there are things that are God. And you have to understand the difference. If I had taken this other position and gone to Minneapolis, I possibly could have done good things. I could have been used. But would have not fulfilled the future that God had planned for me. There's a difference between just I could do good things for the Lord and I can do the things God wants me to do. You know, honestly, a lot of you would never be in this room if I had made that decision to go. That's just the honest truth. Like, we probably wouldn't all be here together in some sense, in some capacity, if I had made that decision to go. Whoever knows if Pastor Tyler would be on staff, honestly. Because I was the one that went to Pastor and said, you need to hire this dude. I mean, I want him to be my middle school pastor. This is going to be legit. And he's just like, yeah, I'll hire him, but he's going to be the kids' pastor. I'm like, oh, I don't like that answer. And then look at it. 2 years later, let's give God some praise. 3 years later, middle school pastor! Like, I look at it like, I'm sitting here like with like my spiritual brother and my actual brother with young adults. And like, there are times where you can make a good decision, but it may not be exactly what God has for you. And so let's talk a little bit more. How do we dig into the heart of God? How do we discover those things? It's obviously listening to those that know us well, those that have great wisdom. But I talked a little bit about this concept when I was talking in the Future is Now. That message had a lot of themes, but the overarching theme was you have to prepare now for what God wants to do in your life later. You're not just going to randomly and coincidentally walk into your future. You're going to prepare strategically for it. I was listening to somebody the other day, they were talking about how teams, it could be a sports team, it could be, Coca-Cola as like a business organization as a team. Teams don't win on accident. You win on purpose. And when you're talking about being on Team Jesus and you're talking about preparing for your future, you don't accidentally walk into it. I'm going to tell you, you don't get a wife like mine, you don't get a wife like Janelle, and you don't get whoever foxy honey that is God's going to bring to Pastor Tyler, right? You don't get that on accident.
I just pictured a fox covered in honey. Like when he,
I mean, I don't know, man.
like you just with like a rifle, like hunting, like fox hunting, and there's this fox caught.
I feel like you would actually like that. But I'm just saying, you don't get that on accident. That doesn't happen on accident. That honestly happens through prayer. It happens through saving yourself for what God has for you. It happens through seeking out wisdom. Like, I didn't just one day decide, hey, I'm going to marry Sid. I don't care what anybody thinks. That's not God. God doesn't work that way. All of my pastors, all of my friends, all of my leaders, everyone in my life not only said, hey, she's right, but hey, it's time. There can be something that's right for your future, but it's not that time in your future yet. And I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of people, God has He has the God thing in front of him, but it's only good timing. It's not God's timing. You have to watch it all line up. And one of the things we talked about in The Future Is Now is how do you prepare for the future? The greatest way to prepare for the future is in God's presence. You prepare right now in God's presence for what he wants to do in you later. And I've been seeing this theme and it's been convicting me because I'm just not good at this. And I always find time with the Lord, but the more I've been reading Scripture, I see this theme over and over and over again. It's just like it's telling me I need to make some changes here. It's saying, whoever it's talking about, in this case, I was reading about this woman named Hannah, and it's saying, and they got up early in the morning and they met with the Lord. Or they got up early in the morning and they worshiped the Lord. Or they got up early in the morning and they spent time with God. Whatever. I read it in the Psalms with David. I just read it in 1 Samuel with Hannah. And I'm continually seeing this theme of they get up early and they meet with the Lord. I'm just like, oh, I hate getting up early. And then literally, Sid doesn't even know that I'm reading all this, and the Lord's speaking this to me. And Sid's like, what do you think about if once a week we'd get up together and do devotions together in the morning? I'm just like, you get up like an hour before I get up. Like that, that sounds awful. You know what I mean? And God's just been telling me that great people, like that really are people that he's set up aside to do kingdom work, to really see their future fulfilled, to see them lead others. They're people of sacrifice. They're people that get up early in the morning. And if you look at this concept of getting up early, let me just use an example for me. Now, some of y'all, you got to get up early enough for school. You're like, I ain't getting up any earlier than I have to, right? Because why? I was asking God, this morning I was praying, I said, Lord, how do I get up earlier? I'm trying, man. I'm setting the alarm, and I'm like, snooze, snooze, snooze. How do I get up earlier? Like, Lord, I really want to. Help me. He goes, go to bed earlier, you idiot. Literally, I felt like I verbally almost heard him say that this morning. He said, go to bed earlier. I'm like, I know, but you don't understand, my schedule. By the time I'm getting home late. Sid knows. Then we got Darling Bible Study at our house, or we got this meeting, and just that's how it is for us. I'm like, so Lord, how do I do this? He said, see, there are some moments, Dave, where you can't. It's just, you can't get up early because you literally have been up all night with students. That happens. And there are some days where, Dave, when you get home and you want to sit on Asphalt 9? It's this video game I'm playing my phone. Or you want to get home and you guys want to watch some Netflix? And you should go to bed, but you do that? See, you can't do that stuff. If you want to meet with me in the morning, you can't do that stuff at night. The Christian life is defined by sacrifice. It defines us. It marks us. Now, I think there's higher levels of sacrifice than others. I look at the military, that's sacrifice. You look at the Apostle Paul as a Christ follower. The dude went through sacrifice. We're not talking about much here. It's not that hard here when you really think about it, but we would consider it sacrifice. Like going to bed an hour earlier than you have to, right? But you need to if you're going to get up an hour earlier. And you look at this concept here, sacrifice. All of this, just whether it's a Christian life or in general, it works this way. If I want to have a retirement savings account when I retire, what do I got to do? Put money in right now. If I want to have money for college, I had to save it right now. Since the age of 12, when I started mowing lawns and I was cleaning toilets and I started these different jobs, right? I worked at a tree farm. I put in 70% of my money in the bank, 10% went to God, and I lived off 20%. I was pulling into the gas station on E every time because I'd fill up $5 and I'd pull out. $5 would get you not even 2 gallons these days. Holy smokes, right? Yeah, I'm getting old. And so I learned to save my money. This year, I just paid off all my school debt. I'm debt-free with my college now. Because why? I learned not only how to save money, my tithe, how to give God my money, but I also learned how to be a good steward and pay off debt. And a lot of you guys, the concept of saving money, It's, I got money, gotta spend it. I have to spend it. There's gotta be something I can buy. Go on Amazon, I'll buy that. I don't need it, but I'm gonna buy it. Why would I want this money right now? You know what I mean? Like, so you don't save it. Like, I've been putting in my retirement since I was 22 years old. Because one day, it's approaching quicker than I like already, I'm gonna be old. One day, dude, I know, it's happening like really fast. I'm gonna need it. So it's either prepare now and in my future be set up, or not care now and my future I'm screwed up. It's the same thing sexually, guys. You can either have immediate gratification now and you can go have sex with somebody and you can fool around and do what you want. And really, statistically speaking, marriages are so much more likely to fall apart with those that have sex before marriage than those that keep themselves. So either do what you want now and later pay the price, or stay a virgin now, keep yourself for the Lord now. And I'll tell you, when me and Sid got married, I didn't have to ask her if she had any STDs. I didn't have to ask her about comparing myself to another guy or about this experience that she had and all these things. It's either sacrifice now, because let's be honest, in this culture, it is a sacrifice. Sex is everywhere. It's on every TV screen, it's on every phone, it's on every social media outlet, it's at every conversation at lunch, everywhere you go, sex is in front of you. So it's literally either sacrifice now and reap the rewards in your future what God has, or do what you want now, and you're going to find out later.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was reading this book called Maps of Meaning, and it's talking about like how our brains like function and how our brains will like align itself, and it compares humanity and humans' brains to the brains of like animals and stuff, like to the brains of foxes covered in honey, okay? And so what they found is the trait of sacrifice and the trait of putting off something and removing instant and immediate gratification for future gain, they said that is literally, you don't ever see it in animals. Like, animals never have that trait. And they're comparing, and they're trying to even do it from a humanistic standpoint, is going, why do humans have this? They're not even talking about God in this book, but they're just talking about, why do humans have this? What makes us unique? You know, they've even looked at like squirrels, okay? So squirrels will they'll grab like acorns and nuts and stuff like that, and they'll hoard it for the winter, but that is purely instinct. And when you prepare for the future, what are you doing? You're fighting against the instinct. You're fighting against the initial instinct that says, I want instant gratification. I want this right now. For sexual instinct, you know, animals, they don't wait. They just do it, okay? Well, now, we have to fight against the instincts that they automatically just go down, that the pathway in their brain that just tells them to do what they do, they follow that pathway. And humanity godly humanity is meant to fight against the natural instincts in order to put off what we want exactly right now, to then delay that, because what's coming is much greater. And that's the core of Christianity, is that right now might not be the time. Right? There's a season for everything. And you might have to put off this instant gratification, this thing that you want so bad right now. God, I want you to tell me this. God, I want this right now. God, I need this right now. I need to know the answer. I need to know the pathway. Oh, it's so frustrating, but we do that because it pays off in the end. And that's what separates us.
I got one more thought I want to talk about, but I feel like God, really quick before we go there, speak to some of the people, would you, that they haven't waited, they haven't sacrificed, and now maybe they're sitting there thinking, man, I screwed it all up. What's my future now? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, even as Pastor Tyler was talking a little bit earlier about like an accountability partner, or having that person in your life that you're a little bit afraid of. It's really crucial that that person understands, like my favorite scripture, Romans 8:1, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. Or maybe you're that person for someone else, or you're going to be that person for someone else, that somebody's going to come to you and they're going to be you're going to be keeping them accountable. It's really, 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 really important that we recognize that Christ died for our sins, even in the areas especially in the areas that we failed. Like, it is so important to recognize that despite your story, despite what you've walked through, that you don't condemn yourself, because Christ doesn't condemn you, whatever your thing is, whatever your story is, whatever your past is. If you look at the Apostle Paul, we were talking about him last night in progression, like, he was the worst of the worst, and he was self-verified as the worst. He said, I was the worst of sinners. And yet Christ elevated him to a place of utmost authority and prestige in the kingdom, that there was potentially no one on earth like Paul in the midst of what he had walked through. And it's something we were even talking about at Progression Retreat with the guys, because pornography is something that's so rampant with guys and girls at this point. But we were talking about it with the guys, and I said, we got to get past this place where what can kind of happen is it can get into a rhythm of like, hey, bro, I screwed up. And they're like, okay, man, it's all right. Like, me too. And we got to get past that and recognize that we don't condemn one another, but we got to call each other to higher standards. Like whatever your thing is, it's not, wow, I can't believe you did that. That's so horrible. You're a horrible person. You've screwed up your future. It's, hey, it's okay. But you are better than that. This is not okay. This is not who we are. And we have to call each other to higher standards, because what becomes really easy to do is just, it happens so frequently, or I've been struggling with this for so long, or I struggle with it too, so I don't want to condemn you. We got to be really conscious that we don't approach one another in condemnation, but we don't approach one another in covering over one another's sins, that we don't validate the sin, that we validate the human being that has done this thing, but we condemn the sin that they were doing. And what we tend to do is validate the sin and condemn the person.
Yeah. A lot of what this series was designed to do was illuminate the beautiful future that God has for you. But more than that, really what it was designed to do is to dig up and help us each discover what is it that's holding us back from our future. Close your eyes with me really quick. All over this room, close your eyes. I'm going to have you vote real quick, and no one's going to see. We already have done this, so don't worry. How many of you struggle in some way, you do, whatever, with anxiety? Put your hand up really quick. Okay, you can put your hands down. You can open your eyes. So majority of the room that raised their hand, but not everybody did. And the last thing that I want to talk about here, I think, is the eye-opening, mind-opening, probably discovery, is that if you didn't raise your hand, you needed to. Because I think understanding the beast is probably the greatest reveal that can happen in our lives to let God begin to do something. Now, I'm saying that because Pastor Tyler is one I've always known in some way has struggled with anxiety. And I've always said what?
I don't struggle with anxiety.
Dude, I don't struggle with anxiety. Like, why do you? Like,
You've always said, you big baby.
I've been
That's
always.
what he says.
I honestly, I've always just been like, people that struggle with it, I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And then you know what happened? During this series, God started teaching me, hey, Dave, you struggle with anxiety. I'm like, no, I don't. You don't know me, God. Like, what are you talking about? You don't know me, God. Right? I'm just like, no, I don't. He's like, yeah, you do. You see this? You see this? I'm like, that's anxiety? Because see, I always look at anxiety as when Pastor Tyler gets anxious, he kind of almost like shuts down. When I get anxious, I rev up. I do the complete opposite. So
Sid's just sitting there like,
yeah. It's like when I'm driving and I don't know where I'm going, I'm just like, where am I going? You know, and I just start getting anxious.
it's so you.
It is. It's just like, and then Sid's sitting over there, you're going to take a left. No, put it on my GPS. I need to see it, you know, like, yeah, like, so like, I would tell you this, understanding what you're struggling through, understanding the beast, calling that out and knowing it, I think is the first step before God can do anything. Because a lot of us would say, oh, I don't struggle with that, or that's not a problem. Yeah, you do. Everybody in some way struggles with anxiety, with worry, with doubt, with fear, any of these things that keep us from our future. In some way, we all struggle with it.
Yeah, I think I especially want to speak to the people who struggled with, it sounds weird to say it, but like a spirit of awkwardness, okay? So you're like, I'm just an awkward person. And what that does is it becomes a covering, because what you're afraid to do is step out into things in the future, okay? You might not be the person who thinks about when you're 50 years old. You might not be the person who thinks that far in the future. But what you're doing is you're seeing a social situation and you're looking into the future of you going up to that person or talking to those people or being in that crowd, and you're so afraid to do that you're just like, I'm not going to do it. And you might not be the type of person who's afraid to do it in the sense of you're like, oh, I'm so afraid to go talk to those people. This might be you. You might just be like, I'm not going to do it. And the reason you don't do it, the reason you don't step out, the reason that you're just kind of numb to those things is because there's a wall built between you and what the possibility of what you could do, okay? That's what happens, and there's a numbness that happens when we embrace this awkwardness, okay? I'm an awkward person. We're awkward people. That's what makes us fun. We wouldn't be fun if we weren't awkward people. Awkwardness is hilarious. It's awesome, okay? Yes, it is awesome. That's what I'm talking. Thank you. That was awkward.
I've
okay?
never seen you speak before.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking.
She's like, yeah, oh no, don't look at me. No one's looking at me now. But it doesn't mean that every situation is going to go exactly as smooth as you want it to go. But what it means is that you go, listen, I'm not afraid of it going weird. I'm not afraid of it being uncomfortable. Because that's a fear of the future, and that, in a sense, is a form of anxiety. So even though you might not be the person who's like, what am I going to do for my job? You might just be like, whatever, I'm chill, I'm going to go with the flow, that's cool. But you might be afraid to talk to someone about something you know you're supposed to talk to them about, and you're not doing it. That's an anxious thought. That's an anxiety. That's a fear of the future.
I think a lot of times we self-label. We label ourselves, well, I'm an awkward person or I'm socially awkward. And then the response becomes, in every social situation, I no longer feel any sort of pressure to engage because I've just self-labeled. Well, I'm just a socially,
the responsibility.
I'm an awkward person, so I don't have to do these things. And dude, I have been there. Literally, when I first came on staff as a pastor, because pastor's big thing is you will go out in the lobbies and you will minister to people after services. I would walk out in the lobbies after service and I'd see a new person and I'd be like, oh no, I need to talk to that person. I would start I'm an actor, so I'd walk up and be like, hey, I'm Steve, so nice to meet you. And they wouldn't know it, but before I was like, okay. Pastor Dave, my wife, people like that can't comprehend that. Maybe some of you can. There's no, I talked about when I preached a few weeks ago, I used to throw up every week before I had to walk out on stage. There is no excuse to not do the things that God has called you to. If you got to throw up, go throw up, and then walk out and do what God has called you to. If you got to wipe the sweat off your sweaty palms, if you got to buy antiperspirant hand lotion like I bought,
I tried it.
if that's what you got to do, I did it.
It works.
I did it Sunday. It basically just turns your hands into chalk. Yeah. Because I knew if I didn't do that and I had to play drums, I would be sticking a drumstick in someone's eyeball.
What's the reverse of clammy?
Oystery?
No, I mean they were like the Sahara. They were so dry. I couldn't even rub them back and forth.
You just
and just
your
stopped.
hand in flour and then just brought it back out.
Yeah.
But the word talks so much, and it says do not fear. I think it actually says it 365 times, doesn't it? I think it's one for every day.
One for every day.
Okay, the word says do not fear. Not it's a good suggestion. Not you probably shouldn't fear. It is a commandment of God that we not fear. And what we typically do is we're like, okay, don't kill. Okay, don't lust. Okay, don't lie. Okay, I got those. But fear is one of those things that we're like, you don't understand. You don't understand how much that freaks me out. And the command in Scripture is do not fear. It is a command. And it is something God actually expects of people who possess His Spirit, that they would not be afraid. This is what we talked about last night. If you recognize what was really, and you ask the Lord, just keep opening my eyes. Lord, open my eyes to what's going on spiritually. If you recognize what's going on in the spiritual realm, there is no scenario where you're ever afraid of anything in the physical. Nothing in the natural can ever scare us if we really understand how big our God is, what's really going on around us, that His Spirit is with us, that His angels encamp around those who believe. When we really recognize what God is doing on our behalf, Romans 8:31, if God is for you, then who could be against you? If we really recognize what God is doing on our behalf in the Spirit, we would never be afraid of things in the natural.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we tell you guys just on a really practical level is if you're really struggling through anxiety, depression, you just, for a long time, you haven't been able to get past certain fears or things, obviously seek the Lord on it. Obviously, you're in the right place. Obviously, get in God's presence. But really practically, you need to see a Christian counselor. We have two amazing ones at this church that are on our team here. They are incredible. And I'm serious. Get with our team. Ask. Seek us out. We will set you up because there just may be some more things that God wants to reveal in you. You just need a little extra help. It's not a sign of weakness, right? Asking for help, there's such a prideful thing to think that, well, if I ask for help and everybody knows my business and then later, no, that's a sign of strength. That's saying that you want to go to a new level, but you know you can't go to it on your own. And I've seen this in my life where there's been certain things that have held me back, and there's this pride that wants to keep you from going to the next level because you won't actually ask somebody for help. And what I want to call kind of this last week of future is the future's not final. That's what I want to call it. This thought popped in my mind, and I was like, what does that even mean? I don't even know, is that even scriptural? What does that mean? And this is immediately what God spoke to me. He said that the future is finished, but it's not final. When Jesus went to the cross, guys, he yelled from the cross, "It is finished." And when he did that, he wanted to take control of all of your fear, all of your worry, all of your anxieties, your depression, every sin you ever struggle with, everything that's held you back. He finished it. He conquered it. He destroyed it on the cross. When he went in the tomb and rose again, he rose in victory. It's done. It's taken care of. But here's why the future is finished, but not final. It's finished because Jesus already paid the price, and you already have the victory, even though you're not there yet in your future. But it's not finished yet because you haven't actually got there yet. It's not final yet because you haven't actually got there yet. And God still wants to do some things in you. That's why I say, if you need to go to counseling, guys, go to counseling. Because God wants to shape you and do something in you right now so that he can get you ready to be the final product. He already finished it for you. He's just trying to help you get to be that final product. When I look in Scripture, we've been talking every week about the Apostle Paul. I should say the last 3-4 weeks, whatever. We just been in the book of Philippians, and I've just been beating it to death. I've just been reading it nonstop, been just in it deep. And I continually come back to the Apostle Paul. He's sitting in chains, and he realizes it's finished, but it ain't over yet. I'm in these chains, and it's finished, but it's not final. God ain't done with me yet. I know I'm in a hard situation, but God ain't done with me yet. I know, you might be saying, I know I'm struggling in some emotions, and I know I've had a lot of mistakes, and I know I feel like I've screwed up beyond repair. Listen, it's finished. God's not done with me. He's still working in me. He's still bringing me to completion. And I look in Scripture, and when the Apostle Paul wrote this, and I continually think about the dude's in chains. He's in the greatest struggle of his life. And this is what he says in Philippians 3, verses 13 and 14. He says, "Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." Here's the key. It's finished, but it's not yet final. How do you walk in the finished work of God, but also receive the finality of God? It's this. You no longer look back behind you. You don't look at what you screwed up in. You don't look, hey, if you have had sex with somebody, if you've done those drugs, if you've made those mistakes before, you don't look back at that anymore. You press on to what God can do in you for your future. You press on to what he's called you to. You press on to who you can be in Christ. You press on. And you know what? You never let the past hold you back from the future, but you also don't sit there in the present and do nothing about it. The future's now. So it's not that you look back and you say, oh my gosh, I've screwed up so much. No. Don't look back, but don't just sit there either in the present. The goal, the process is press on, move forward. Each day, take one more step. Each day, just try to become a little bit more like Jesus. Each day, learn a little bit more about God's love for you. Each day, get a little bit more connected to God's church. Each day, stretch yourself a little bit more in prayer. Get up a little bit earlier. Each day, maybe 5 minutes each day until you hit that hour or whatever it is. Whatever your time is, you're like, man, I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to wake up just 5 minutes earlier to spend a little bit more time with God. Each day, the key is just take a little bit more of a step forward, because every step you take is one step further into your future and one step further away from your past. The future, it's finished. He's already done it on the cross for you. But maybe you feel like you've screwed up beyond repair. Here's the beauty. It's not final. He still has something he can do in you tonight. His grace is sufficient for you tonight. His power is made perfect in your weakness tonight. And you maybe feel like you're sitting there emotionally in some chains. You may feel like you're just broken in a situation. It's okay. He's not done yet. It's not over. It's not final. He can still do something tonight. Heads bowed, eyes closed across this place. I'm telling you, we're about to hit a home run tonight. We're about to hit the stretch right now. And I'm telling you, not only in this moment, but we're about to step into something super special in a moment, and God wants to do something in you. But where it starts is surrender right now in this moment. Where it starts is you coming into this moment where you're saying, God, okay, I'm hearing Pastor Dave. I understand what the scriptures say. It's finished for me. Thank you for the cross. But I got some stuff that I need you to start finalizing too. I need you to give me some strength to start stepping out with courage into some things. I need you to give me some greater faith for some things. I need you to help me stop looking back, because I keep looking back at all the things I've screwed up with, and I'm wasting so much time looking back when I could be looking ahead to the beautiful things that you have for me. I could start looking out and ahead to the people that need you, Jesus, that you want to use me to reach, but I'm so concerned with looking behind me. So like the Apostle Paul, Jesus, tonight, start teaching me how to press on. Pressing on towards the goal to win the prize. If tonight you are saying you recognize you have a past and it's in need of the forgiveness, the finished work of Jesus Christ, let's just start with you. Raise your hand and say, I need the finished work of Jesus Christ to forgive my past, to come into my heart, my whole life, every part of me, my mind. Thank you. I see hands up all over. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. You said, I need the finished work. I need the finished work tonight. Thank you. I got you. Thank you. Thank you. You can put them down. Thanks. Anybody else? You're saying, I need the finished work. I need the forgiveness of Jesus on my past. Thank you. Thank you. How about you're in this place and you're saying, I do realize that Jesus has forgiven me, but I haven't been advancing towards the future like I know He wants me to. I haven't been stretching myself in things. I haven't been letting Him shape me in some things. And you're telling me tonight it's not final. And I still got some time here tonight. I still got a chance. And I don't want to walk out of here without allowing God to start something in me, to shape something new. So I don't keep looking back so much. So I don't keep being so lazy in the present. But I start stretching myself forward to what He has for me. I start pressing on. I start running again. And I stop being so still in everything. And I start chasing after the things that God has for me in the future. And if you're telling me it's not final, then tonight, come on. Tonight, put your hands up. I want to see God start doing something to me. I want to see Him start stretching me. And you know what? Even better, I want to see myself start stretching. I got you. You're all over the place. I want to start making some new steps. I want to start developing some new faith. I want to start spending some more time with God. I want to start recognizing the beast and understanding how to attack it. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe some of you tonight, you're just saying, I need to just make a step and get some counseling. And that's a big step for you tonight. That's awesome. That's how He begins finalizing the work in you that He's finished. All across this place, do this. Just stand with me. And we're about to make just an awesome time with God here in a second. But I want to have us just pray a prayer for those that just want to receive Jesus into their hearts tonight, for those that want to allow God begin to do a work, then we confess our faith to the Lord. We believe it in our hearts. And He begins to do something finished in our minds and our hearts, every part of us. And we're going to make a step here in a second. Never stop stepping towards God. Never stop. No matter how many steps you feel like you were in a rhythm where you're right here, and then you just sin, you screw up, and you're way back here, and then you take a step forward, and you still feel like you're still back. Hey, aren't you closer to God than you were? Never stop stepping towards God. So right here, here's a step. Here's a step for all of us. We're going to pray this prayer together, a prayer of faith, acknowledging who Jesus is and what He wants to do. So say it with me. Say, Jesus, thank you for the finished work that you did for me on the cross. I thank you, Jesus, that it's not final, that you still have a work that you want to do in me, and I still have some steps that I can take towards you. I ask you, Jesus, increase my faith, renew my mind, encourage my spirit tonight, so that as I step towards you, you can shape me and mold me and change me to be the final product that you have for me in my future. Tonight, Jesus, I give you my whole life, all that I am. Forgive my past, strengthen my present, and stretch me towards my future. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.